Hello. Today we will be talking about open source technology. My name is Greg Albers, and this is ITM 2000. You may have heard of open source technology before, but chances are you don't know much about it. Open source technology is software in which the source code used to create the program is freely available for the public to view, edit, and redistribute. So, unlike traditional technology and software developed by the likes of Microsoft, Apple, and Adobe, open source technology is essentially free. Any type of software can be open source, such as operating systems, applications, and databases. Today we will be talking about these three types because they are the most prevalent to our personal and business lives. Perhaps the best example of an open source operating system would be Linux. From smartphones to cars, supercomputers, and home appliances, the Linux operating system is everywhere. It has been around since the mid-90s, developed as an alternative to paid operating systems. Since then, it has been developed, reworked, and tweaked by the best minds in the field. That is why Linux is one of the most reliable, secure, and worry-free operating systems available. Linux can run off such things as flash drives or tiny hard drives because it requires a lot less software and memory. So, for example, you could boot up any computer with Linux at the click of a button much faster than Mac or traditional PC operating systems. Linux is one of the most popular operating systems because of that. Another example of open source technology that people incorporate to their daily lives, just like Linux, would be open source applications. OpenOffice.org is perhaps the best example of this. OpenOffice.org includes a word processor, spreadsheet, and presentation application, all very similar to Microsoft's line of Office products. Development of OpenOffice.org was mainly sponsored by Sun Microsystems, who wanted to provide a basis of code for everyday developers to use. And additionally, they found Microsoft licensing was too expensive for their 42,000 employees. Today, OpenOffice.org is very popular among companies and individuals that do not wish to pay major licensing fees to Microsoft, just like Sun Microsystems. This is only possible because of OpenOffice.org is so well built and is seamlessly compatible with all other type of Office suites. So you can pull up an OpenOffice file on Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Lastly, another great example of open office software would be open source databases. While open source operating systems and applications are used in both the personal and business world, databases are traditionally reserved for more business purposes. PostgreSQL is perhaps the best example. Its primary function is to store data securely and to allow for the retrieval at the request of other programs. It is used by major companies such as Yahoo for web behavior analysis, Sony for online multiplayer games, Skype for VoIP and central business management, and TripAdvisor for maps. Now that we have looked into the basics of open source technology and some of its uses, let's look into a little bit more of what makes open source technology truly open source. Open source software is essentially identified by the type of license it is released under. So, for an example, when Microsoft releases its product, you must buy a license paid to Microsoft for access. But open source licenses require that the software source code be freely available and able to be modified by users. These users are then able to redistribute the software and derived works. Essentially, this is why open source technology is so relevant, because it is constantly changing and being improved. Open source technology encourages a shared community approach to development, extension, and fixing of itself. Moderators and certain groups maintain the integrity of open source technology by controlling the core software and supporting documentation programs. The essential core of the open office and open source world is vastly different than those of Microsoft, Apple, and Adobe. This is because those three companies mainly want to profit off their technology, which is why they spend money and time and business connections developing it. While open source is truly a community of its own that wishes to do the best for the world. In conclusion, open source technology is forever growing and rapidly changing. We, the average customer, should be aware of this technology, the possibilities, and the benefits of it. Thank you.